This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and today on the Great North Wrestling podcast, we have a man who is a true survivor and a true fighter. He is a UFC pioneer, MMA legend, and former WCW superstar, David Tank Abbott. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. As long as I'm on this side of the ground, I'm doing pretty good. So, over the last couple of years of my trials and tribulations, I'm glad just to be here, but I'm actually feeling really good.
Now, since I did the last interview with you, which was last December at your home,
Uh-huh.
you had had a liver transplant by that point, but since then, I guess you've had a kidney transplant. How's everything going for your health, and how was that?
This is true. After the liver, I had kidney problems, and they kind of shut down, and I was on dialysis. And while I was in the middle of it, I didn't realize how bad I was feeling, but left foot in front of the right foot, I kept moving forward, and I was fortunate enough to get a kidney transplant. And then I really didn't realize how bad I was feeling, but I feel great now. I'm working out, back in the gym, trying to get back in shape because you never know. I love to fight, and I was put on this earth just to be a fighter, and that's what I do best, and that's what makes me feel alive. So who knows in the future, man? Maybe I'll end up doing it again.
Yeah, well, you are probably more qualified to be in an MMA cage with Tito Ortiz than Alberto Del Rio, who's Tito's fighting in his next fight. I think it's for this Mexican promotion. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but what are your
I think
thoughts
I
on that?
think it's a combate.
Yeah,
Um,
Combate Americas.
yeah, I've seen it around. Uh, Tito's a real shady character. From way back when, so I would be surprised if the fight even happens. And anything can happen in a fight, but who knows? You know, he got lucky when he knocked out Chuck Liddell. And like I said, anything can happen. You know, I was just up at the Czech Congo fight, who trains in the same gym I do. I got to be kind of friendly with him, checked it out. There was an eye gouge, a thumb in the eye. So, you know, so things happen that are out of your control. And it was ruled a no contest. But if it would have kept going, I think Chet would have taken him out. He's got just deadly kicks. And I think that Bader guy was not going to be very happy with being on the receiving end of those big, long legs, like tree stumps bashing into your body. From the observer's point of view, it wouldn't feel too good. I can tell you that one.
Now, what
It was kind
about
of like when I fought Hugo Duarte. I kind of underestimated the power of kicks, and he was whopping my leg. And I had plans just to throw with him, but after about 3 or 4 kicks to my leg, I said, I think I'm going to take this guy down because it's not going my way. And I think that would have happened to Bader, but like I said, anything can happen in a fight, you know. So,
didn't you take
you
that fight
know,
on 4 days' notice or something too? Yeah.
I'm famous for taking fights on anywhere in a week before. I'd fight the night before. I'd even fight the night of. But no, that was a planned out fight down in Brazil, and I take my hat off. I got my lunch served to me down there, and it wasn't a Brazilian steakhouse kind of meal. So I just licked my wounds and came back to fight another day.
When was your exact last MMA fight? Because it hasn't really been recorded officially when it was.
You know, fights are fights. I think it was, I fought this young kid, Warpath, at an Indian casino, and I was truly in the depths of cirrhosis of the liver. And by no means should anybody be in the cage fighting, but leave it to my brilliant self to get in there. It was kind of like how you say, I was kind of like a camera. It was almost like inside my head, it was like a movie until I caught a couple of his punches and I said, no, this isn't a movie. So I took him down and I had no win, but for the last 4 years or so of fighting, I was definitely ill, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. And then finally it came to fruition, full-blown cirrhosis. And what's the word? There was no fighting after that, although I ended up fighting the toughest fight of my life, ended up dying 5 times and coming back. And as of today, I'm victorious at this point in time because I feel better than when I was feeling better. So can't wait to get out there and have some fun.
I saw you were at a wrestling autograph session recently too. Are you back doing autograph appearances now?
Yes, I am. Going to be in North Carolina and in Queens, New York in the month of November coming up. And, it's a lot of fun to see the guys that used to be on the road with all the time and, just having fun, reminiscing with them and talking about everything that's new that's going on. And it's a good time.
Speaking of talking about what's new, a fan had a question for me. I'm sure you've heard of this AEW company. The fan wanted to know if you would come in as a special guest referee or do some type of appearance for AEW if they asked.
Yeah, if they asked, you know what? Like I said, I don't feel like I kind of achieved everything I'd like to achieve in professional wrestling. It was a blast. It was a time in my life. I had a lot of fun going out there and doing all the things. But there's a lot of things that were kind of in the back of my head that wanted to make a way bigger splash. And I was just starting to figure out the things that, I didn't want to go in there and make waves. I wanted to know the lay of the land and how things went down. So I kind of sat on my heels a little bit and kind of checked everything out. And by the time I could got everything going, that's when WCW kind of fell apart or went up for sale after AOL bought Time Warner. And it was kind of like, oh man, I had so much more to do. And, things happen and, on to another thing. But I would love to get back in there and do some of the things that I had in my head that I'd love to do.
Why did you never wrestle Goldberg? Because that seemed like the natural match there in WCW.
Well, Goldberg and everything else, everybody had their own ways of their ideas of what they wanted to do. And me being the newcomer and everything else, you have to know when to take a back seat and just go along for the ride. And that's kind of what I was doing. Just kicking back and taking it all in. And me and Goldberg never really got off on a good angle. We had one, but was short-lived. And they could have drawn it out more. But, in that business, everybody has an idea. And, who's to say their idea wasn't better than mine? So what I had thought of would go over better, but that's the only reason why. Just the timing and everything else didn't match up.
Are you surprised Goldberg's still one of the main wrestling stars in today's wrestling world all these years later?
No, you know what? Bill's a phenomenal athlete, and it does, once you get over and to hold on to it, all those guys out there that have big names and they know what they're doing and they're all talented people. And those guys, they work hard and they do their stuff and they have their whole persona down and everything else. Nothing surprises me with Bill or any other big name guys. They know what they're doing and they know how to hold on to it.
Were there ever any talks to have you fight Mark Coleman in a pro wrestling match in Japan when he was over with New Japan?
No, I like Mark, which is a very few people I like in the business of fighting. But no, as he never crossed my path. I had a lot of guys out there that claimed that they represented me, because I'm not a hard guy to find. So they would go do private setup deals pretending that they represented me. And so maybe something like that went down, what I was completely unaware of. But no, I talked to some Japanese people at the time. I think they ended up running Pride, but the whole thing was it never came to fruition. And I like Mark, and he's a great guy, and I have nothing but respect for the man.
Have you seen that Cain Velasquez is getting into wrestling now?
Yeah, what was pretty funny is I was looking through the internet, and I'm not a big time techie guy or whatever you want to call those things. And I saw this Cain Velasquez guy, and I'm like going, who the hell is this guy? I don't even know who he is. And my wife was like, look, he's got like 1 million followers. And I'm like going, didn't you do like a beer commercial or something like that? I have no idea who he is or what he was. I guess he was a heavyweight champion at one point in time in the UFC. Who knows if he has the charisma and the personality to take it over to another level? You never know what gets over in the public. So maybe he's got that kind of charisma and personality to pull it all together with his fighting skills. Time will tell, I guess. It's kind of funny. I have somebody sent me a tape with this guy is Schmo, I think his name is. He interviewed Tito Ortiz, and I was confused because I didn't know who the Schmo was. But so I put it on my Instagram thing because it is so hysterical. You can check it out on, I don't know, my tankabbott.com. It's on tankabbott.com. You can check it out. It's on a post. And
you got a Twitter, right? You now have a Twitter just for anyone watching if they want to follow you on Twitter.
My Twitter, it's just Tank Abbott.
Tank Abbott, okay.
Yeah, anyways, but I'm not looking for a plug or anything, but it's so funny. You can't just watch it once. I think Tito is trying to shoot a resume tape for the wrestling world, and he's like channeling Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Savage. He's like what you think of when you stereotype a professional wrestler, and he breaks into this full character. And I could not stop laughing. It's a blatant ripoff of everybody, which is par for the course for Tito. He's basically the biggest con man in MMA, but he's renowned for ripping everybody's stuff off and trying to pass it off as his own. So, but check it out. If you're checking this out, check out the tape. You will not be disappointed.
Is this a promo about his upcoming fight against Alberto?
Yes, it is. It's a promo, but it's a wannabe professional wrestler buffoonery. It's just like, are you kidding me? Seriously, like almost tears come out of my eyes watching it. It's so bad.
Have you heard about all this stuff happening with BJ Penn?
Oh yeah, you know what? I saw the bar fight thing, the tape of it. Whatever, that stuff happens when you're in bars. You can get caught with anything. In a fight, if it's not just organized, anything can happen. Bar fights are bar fights. You got to keep your eyes out, man. The punches come from everywhere. and I know that firsthand.
Yeah. And
Uh,
now he's been taken off the UFC Boston show. He had a fight. Dana White was doing him a favor. He had had 7 losses, and he was going to give him one more fight, but I guess he's been removed due to that video.
yeah, like who's to pretend they're the moral police, you know? And you know, Dana White. I mean, he got hoodwinked by the biggest buffoon, Tito Ortiz, into selling him, and he was a big time thing. And Dana bought a hook, line, and sinker with his boxer-sized students, the Fertitta billionaire boys that funded the game. So nothing surprises me with Dana either. He's I never would bump into him at a Mensa meeting. Let's just put it that way.
What do you think about potentially Conor McGregor, a guy that I know you follow a little bit, possibly fighting Khabib in the future? It might happen, supposedly.
You know, when guys, you know, I'm kind of biased because, like, when I was a freshman in high school and I could beat you up and you're masquerading, running around at 120 pounds pretending you're a world champion, I have trouble with that. So I don't watch it. But, you know, if you're a 120 pound man and pretending to be a tough guy, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it. So the idea of me really watching those guys fight, I would probably fall asleep in the middle of it. So I couldn't give you any educated prediction on any fighting part of it. I could only deal with that emotionally, and I think I already did. So good luck to whoever wins, right? I don't have a dog in the race.
What about your thoughts on George St. Pierre retiring when he couldn't get that fight against Khabib? Because I guess he just wanted to have that fight and he was going to retire anyways. But Dana White wanted him to continue fighting if he did beat Khabib. So I guess it's just off the table now.
Yeah, you know, I got nothing bad to say about any of those guys, but whatever, you know, if people like to watch that stuff, go ahead. You know, I kind of missed the old days when there were no rules, there were no weight classes, there were no time limits. You know, I miss those days. You know, now all these little guys, it gives them a forum to fight in, but necessarily I don't really think it's fighting. So.
And that's what I was going to ask you next. Anyways, what's your opinion on when you were in it? There wasn't that much pay. The fights were a lot more intense. Now it seems like all the big name guys just want to fight in the big money fights rather than
Right.
go against real contenders.
Well, the truth of the matter is, you know, when I fought in it, I literally a year earlier I got out of jail for fighting. So I was thrilled to get $2,000 just not to go to jail, fighting what I love to do, and I consider myself fighting is when I turned 16, I could drive around in a car and fight real men at intersections and stuff like that, not classmates in high school. So that was my real started fighting time. And though there were no weight classes, there's no scales at the intersection. And this whole martial art thing has come full circle. It started off with Bruce Lee being able to finger jab you to death to, okay, Ultimate Fighting came along and the real big bad guys after the Gracies sold it, so they couldn't pick the opponents that fought in the show. The real big bad guys got in there and fought, and then now it's coming full circle back to all this hocus pocus mixed martial arts grab ass that they only compete if there's rules and everything else like that. You know, it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You know, I think I debunked the fraud of martial arts with the Bruce Lee wannabe Chuck Norris stuff. And now it's come full circle, and it's already going all the way back to that. Now everybody's an MMA champion. There's a gym everywhere. When I used to go grab a 12-pack and drive around town and go into dojos and say, who wants to fight in here? No rules. And obviously it never happened because no one wanted to fight. Because
that'd be a great reality show, by the way. You should pitch that to a reality show.
I'll look up I can get my old Ford van, 3 on the tree, start off with getting a 12-pack, although I don't drink anymore, and down the 12-pack and pull up into different dojos and say, who wants to fight in here? Isn't this a fighting place? And then write down all the excuses they would come out. Oh, you're not insured. We're experts and we know how to pull punches and all this. I go, I don't care. I'm not going to sue you. Let's fight. I'm here to fight. Let's do it. Oh, we can't. That was their number one thing. And there was a guy that was passing out, what do you call those brochures that says he was a jiu-jitsu world champion, and he had a thing. To his credit, he was willing to fight me and 2 of my friends, not fight, but roll around on a jiu-jitsu mat. And he tapped out my 2 friends, the NCAA wrestlers. He tapped them out pretty quickly. And then I was too much man for him. I was weighing like 270. He got me in an arm lock, and I picked him up off the mat and put my fist up over his face. And you want to go there? And he was all, no, 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 no. And he dropped me down. I dropped it. He let go of my arm, and he fell to the floor. And we left. And then kind of tried to make a thing out of it. And if you watch the UFC in Puerto Rico, I met up with him there in the audience, and I think he understands what would have happened to him after that night if we would have continued in his jiu-jitsu rolling days. But to his credit, he tapped out 2 of my friends, but he was the only mixed, or not mixed, but martial art place that actually said they'd roll with us. So, but that's jiu-jitsu, because, jiu-jitsu you can compete in and do without getting hurt, because you're not striking anybody. You get a tap if someone's going to pop your elbow or something like that. You can tap out and you won't get hurt. That's why a lot of people do that kind of stuff, because there's no pain involved. So,
I don't think you ever want to fight from your back in a street fight either. I've been a bouncer for many years, and it doesn't usually end up good.
No, not at all. So then you obviously understand the BJ Penn part of it. And, to have a moral compass is like that BJ Penn shouldn't be fighting at bars is almost as ridiculous as having a compass on the SS Minnow and what the hell was that show? Gilligan's Island, the SS Minnow, and they went off course because their compass was messed up. These guys that want to act like they're holier than thou, and it's not sportsmanlike to get in a bar fight. It's just ridiculous. Like saying that BJ Penn can't fight because of that. It's ridiculous. I'm 100% on BJ's side on that, and BJ just have to deal with it, man. Does the politics that now live in society of what true warriors fight for nowadays. It's, the whole meaning of a real warrior has been askew from the pollution of this modern day takeover of /sport/martial art gimmick. It takes the ultimate out of fighting,
Now, is it true that the Gracies actually stopped you from competing? You wanted to start in UFC 3, but they wouldn't allow you to actually fight until UFC 6?
No, I actually got I friends of friends found out that I was going to be in the UFC, so I had a sponsor, and they sponsored me. They bought me a ticket back because I wanted to see. I had a letter of intent saying that I could be in it, and so I wanted to go back and see how the operation was. So when I fought in UFC 6, that it wouldn't be all new to me. I kind of knew the layout. And so I was there, and at the time, Art Davie, I don't know if you know who that is. He was the matchmaker, and in my opinion, he's right up there with Tito, one of the biggest scumbags on earth. And he's not such much as a lying, cheat, con man as Tito is, but he's a little wormy backstabber guy. And he goes, "Oh, I got your tickets for you," and he ended up giving the tickets to these girls that wanted to go there. So I was sitting up in the nosebleeds. I yelled down to Art, like, "Hey man, why did you give my tickets away and give me these seats in the rafters?" And I knew, well, I'm pretty good at playing ignorant and stupid. Stupid comes easy for me. But so I just go, "Oh, okay." And I just kind of ribbed him a little bit, which not the brightest. Bright people are not very bright people, can't take a ribbing too well. They take it too personally. And so I ribbed him a little bit, yelled at him and screamed at him. And so then when I got home, the guy that was kind of representing me doing all the phone calls called him up and said, "Okay, so we're on for the next show, UFC 60." He goes, "Hell no, I'm not letting that crazy guy fight in the fucking show." Excuse my French. But so they kicked me out of the show. It had nothing to do with the Gracies. But the Gracies, the way I understand it, were partners with the TV producers, Semaphore Entertainment Group. And after 1 through 5, they lost control of the show. And so Semaphore took over the show. So that's why the average weight of the show went up 100 pounds, because the Gracies couldn't pick who was going to fight in the show. So the Gracies, yeah, I've ran into Hoist, and he seems to be a nice gentleman. That's the only Gracie that I really know of, but have had contact with. And he seems like a great guy. But just out of a business point of view, they're not going to ruin the Gracie product by allowing people such as myself that weigh 270 pounds, benching over 600 pounds, go in there and crush you like a grape when you're trying to do something off of your back or trying to do an arm lock. Arm locks don't work too well when you're getting punched in the head with a 600-pound sledgehammer. So the Gracies didn't have anything to do with it, but they were tightly together with Art Davie, and the Art Davie thing it was all about him playing big shot. The goof would wear a tuxedo and go out to nightclubs and act like he was, what's that guy with the crazy hair, Don King? He had that kind of mentality. And he was like, "I'm the big shot of the show," which was infiltrated by a full cast of bozos, characters that you wouldn't even believe, that were more in tune with the battery's low on this. And so they were all more into the ploy of being a promoter. They were all into playing the role as like, this is about fighting and the fighters. This isn't about you creating a role, unlike other people of modern day UFC people. No one gives a rat's ass about who Dana White is. In other words, than him just jumping on TV, mugging for the camera any way he can. What the hell has he ever done? And by the, he's sitting there. He wanted to box Tito, and I would have had my money on Dana on that show. That's for sure. But I offhandedly said, "What kind of fighting show do you have when you have a made-up champion that you guys made up a weight class for and gave him a bunch of easy fights, and he's going to get defeated by the promoter? Is Don King going to have a wrestling match with Mike Tyson? I mean, that's like ridiculous. What kind of point are you making when a promoter can kick your ass in a boxing match and you're supposed to be the light heavyweight champion of the world?" It was foolish, and obviously it never came to fruition. But so Art Davie created himself a little spot, and he passed it on to small time Joe Silva. That's my nickname for him. He's a little itty bitty guy, and he's got a little itty bitty ego, or actually a giant ego and a little itty bitty guy. Anyways, I guess he cashed out and disappeared, which he should. He was just playing. He used to be an arcade guy. He used to work at an arcade, pushing a broom around, collecting quarters. And then he's matchmaker of the UFC. That'll tell you how in depth the Dana White clan is. And I'm not sour graping it or anything. I take my hat off to everything that those guys done, but it's a far cry from what it used to be.
Have you heard about this new baddest motherfucker belt that Dana White is creating? Basically, Dana White, for this event at Madison Square Garden in November, is creating a belt. It's going to be called the baddest motherfucker title for the Nate Diaz match. And apparently The Rock's going to come and put the title on whoever wins the match.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I saw something about The Rock. And trust me, I'm not good at surfing the net, but these things have passed in front of me. And whatever. Like I said, I just call me old, called me whatever, but when I could beat you up when I was a freshman in high school, what the hell are you going to be calling yourself the baddest motherfucker or whatever? It's baffling to me, but everybody's got to make up a story and everybody's got to be tough. And if a freshman in high school could kick your ass when you're a grown man, you shouldn't be even thinking you're tough. I mean, but, they're a little like chihuahuas. They're just, yep. And when it comes to biting somebody, they're not really effective.
So do you think that hurts the credibility of titles in the UFC at all to create this new title called that?
To somebody that's old school like myself, I think they've already demolished anything that what it used to be. The initial draw was the Ultimate Fighting, who was the baddest MFer to get out there and get down. And I think I don't necessarily call them my colleagues, but other people that have been in the fight world, they always knew that you call Tank Abbott a couple days beforehand at the bar and say, "Where do you need me to be and how much money are you going to give me? I'll be there. Don't worry about it." Those kind of people are far and few between. Mark Coleman probably do it. There's a few guys out there, but these guys, and more power to them. It's just not the same animal. It's not a grizzly bear anymore. It's a guy playing a banjo and a bear dancing in the street.
Have you heard about Pat Miletich saying that you once ran from fighting him in Birmingham, Alabama? That's been in the news over the past little bit.
I went to a fight show and he was commentating on it, and he brought one of the commentators brought that up, and I said, seriously, do you think myself here would run from a fight from anybody, much less Pat Miletich? I mean, the notion is absolutely ridiculous. I cut him a little slack and I said, I never run from anybody. And he goes, oh. And I'm not a storyteller. I'll tell you the 100% truth. And I cut him a little slack and I said, if you were chasing me, then I was chasing you. And we were running in circles because that's not how I remember it. I know the incident of what he speaks about. And they were having, after the fight, they were having a wet T-shirt contest. And they had a stool out on the dance floor for me to go out there and judge women. And that wasn't my cup of tea.
I'm surprised.
I'm not some liberal guy I'm just not into that cheesy part of the whole gimmick. I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. And at the time, I had a friend, Vietnam vet guy, and he used to live with me here at the house, Bird. And so I said, Bird will take my place. He can sit on the stool. Give him a little bit of a thrill, have some fun, whatever. Well, Pat Miletich decided that since there was a vacant chair there, that he would sit in it. And this is back in the time when Pat Miletich was Pat Miletich who? So he's sitting on the stool, and I said, hey, get out of the stool. My friend Bird's sitting here. And he's all, no. And so I grabbed him by his face, picked him up and threw him on his back right on the dance floor there. And this is after, I think it was the Hugo Doherty fight. No, it wasn't. It was somebody in Alabama I fought. It was just, anyways, it was a short fight. But anyways, so he didn't really say much. And then Bird sat in the stool and judged the female dancers or whatever. We left. And then I guess he had enough alcohol to think that he could maybe tie my shoes. I don't know. But he come running out of the bar, and there's like a long street there, like a party street, Dolphin Street, I believe it is. And he comes running down the street, and I was just outside of the hotel, and Bob Meyerowitz was there. He used to run the UFC. And he said, please, David, don't beat this poor little man up. And I'm like, he goes, please, just go to your room. Please, please, for me, will you do that? So I got in the elevator, went up to my room in a brisk walk, by no means a run. And he, I guess, took that as I was running from him. But that's the truth. I got nothing to hide. I think anybody with half a brain, and they're far and few between in the fighting business, would understand that Pat Miletich would need a step ladder to trim my toenails, much less entertain the thought of fighting me. So that's his version. And out of the generosity of my heart, I'll let him hold on to it.
One of your fans wanted me to ask you about if you ever ran into Dog the Bounty Hunter in person.
I haven't. You know what? I hadn't, and I didn't like his personality on TV. But over the years, he's softened me up, and I kind of find him a humorous kind of guy. And I've never ran into him, but if I did nowadays, I'd say hi to him.
And Chris Cyborg recently signed the largest MMA contract in women's fighting history, according to Bellator. What do you think about her getting a bigger salary than Ronda Rousey supposedly had in UFC?
Right on for her. I mean, everybody out there that's a real fighter and is not a phony, like people aforementioned. More power to him. Get out there and make money. Do you know who the first fight she's going to be with? Is it going to be that McGregor guy or maybe?
No, it's going to be I forget her name, but it's going to be against their featherweight champion supposedly.
Oh well, I hope the best featherweight wins.
And I forget the guy's name, but you had one fight where you literally crumpled him in half in the UFC. What was that knockout like? He folded up like a lawn chair.
Yes, that was Steve Nelmark. And lo and behold, he was an alternate because I was supposed to fight Ken Shamrock, just like I was supposed to fight him a couple times. And every time we were matched up, he something happened to him. He couldn't continue to fight. So Nelmark stepped in and took the beating for Ken because I would have done the same thing to Ken.
Have you heard about this bare knuckle promotion Ken is trying to start off now? I think it's called possibly Glory Fighting or something like that.
I have heard of it, and they were entertaining the thought of having me be involved in that, and I'm like, I'm the first guy that brought the gloves to the UFC, and you want me to now say bare knuckle? I don't think it works that way. I'm not a sellout, a fake, a phony. And so I guess they found one in Ken, and and so Ken's doing it. I guess I haven't heard anything of it. They just made an announcement. It's kind of like that Combate fight with Tito. I would be amazed if it ever happened, and maybe it will, but it seems kind of on shaky ground. I know Campbell used to be involved in the first UFC semaphore, and I guess his record speaks for itself as far as fight promotions go. And I'm not including the first UFC. I'm talking since that dissolved. His record speaks for itself from that point on. And so I'd be amazed if the fight happens, and I would be more amazed if 10 people bought it or showed up.
Did you hear that Shamrock and Severn had a pro wrestling match in Australia recently, and it went to a no contest? I think they each will probably have a hard time doing the job in that one.
Oh, I know what you mean by the job, but I think the harder part of the job would be an actual job of them shooting a promo. It'd be as
Did WWE ever approach you about fighting Shamrock in pro wrestling? Because it seems like you would have been a natural to go there after WCW closed.
Yeah, after WCW closed, I just kind of fell off the face of the earth at that time. I don't know if it was just me mentally, sometimes I just want to be alone. And so I took some time off, and I never really had discussions with the up north, as they say. Although I never went there to talk to them or say, hey, I was interested or anything. So yeah, you would think it'd be something that they would want to pursue, but you know how political that whole business is. So I don't know what ever happened on any level. So like I said, I was ready for a break and recharge my batteries and find out who I was as a person. And I was pretty much going down that road until the liver gave out. So, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm bouncing back stronger than ever. Clear-headed, new liver, new kidney, feeling great, feeling better than I did before. And I'm not done with my life's work here, so who knows what's next.
Have you seen anything from WWE lately? They recently had a show at Madison Square Garden that only drew 7,000, and they brought back Stone Cold Steve Austin again recently, and they only drew a 1.7 rating. So
Uh-huh.
business is not, there's not a lot of interest in it, but their revenues are greater than ever from TV deals.
Sure. And, you know, I'm no expert in professional wrestling. I don't get into the nuts and bolts of it all. But from what I understand, wrestling's pretty much cyclical. It does a whole loop and it then starts all over again big. So, it could be in its down phase, but I don't have any less faith that it'll be back on top again because it's a great product and wrestling's fun. It's awesome because it's not only physical, it lets you touch your intellectual side of things and put little twists on things and have fun, and it's a blast.
Now, one of my friends, Sammy, who's also an MMA fighter, wanted me to ask you what your toughest fight was. I know your actual health battles have been your toughest, but is there one
Uh-huh.
street fight or MMA fight that you found to be like the toughest fight of your life?
Well, the only thing is like I don't feel necessarily that way. The toughest fight I ever had, I would say, it would be my last one, no matter what it was. But you know, easy one to say is Oleg because that guy took a beating and a half, and he still kept going. And I ran out of gas, but after fighting for 15 minutes or thereabouts, and it was tough. And he took a beating, and he came back and choked me. But do it again, I'd give him the same beating. So who knows? But there's nothing more like, oh my God, that was a tough fight. I never thought he was going to quit type thing. I never second guessed myself. And I've been beat up in the street many times, not just by one guy, but different circumstances with multitudes of people. So
And probably weapons in some cases, as I've found very
I've
technical.
been hit with hammers. I've been hit with everything. Groups of people. But you know what? I'm still here, and I'll be back.
And
Please.
I saw your appearance on Friends since the last time
Yes.
I talked to you. Somebody sent it to me. What was that whole experience like?
Well, they told me I was going to be on Friends, and I said, "What's that?" Because at that point in time, I wasn't watching sitcoms even to this day. I don't. And I'm
I
like, going,
can't
"What the hell
picture
is
you
that?"
watching
They're
that,
going,
sitting at home watching that.
"Yeah, exactly." So I'm like, "Going, what the hell is this?" He goes, "That's the biggest show on TV." And Robin Williams and who else? Somebody else.
Magnum
Billy
PI
Chris.
sitting on there.
Billy. No, this is the same episode.
Oh,
Robin Will. It was a sweeps week episode, and so I'm like going, all these people like whom I Courtney Cox and Jennifer Aniston and Joey. I don't even know who his real name is. Matt LeBlanc and somebody else.
I didn't
No,
actually
what was
watch
it? He
either
was a
season.
guy. There was only one cool guy there, and I can't remember. David Schwimmer. He was a cool guy. All the other ones were like, I'm a star. And all the females didn't talk to me. It was fun, whatever. I didn't know what I was doing, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll pick this guy up, run around, and it's on all the time because people remind me, hey, I saw you on Friends. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, because it was a blip in my radar screen at that point in time.
Do you get any residuals for that, or did you have to sign something where
Yeah,
there's
no, I didn't get any residuals from it, but I was just it was just to pump the UFC, and obviously, who cares? It was fun. That's all that matters.
was the guy easy to work with in the scene where you were fighting him?
Yeah, that John Favreau guy.
Yeah.
He was heavier than he looks in the gi. So we did that tape where I pick him up and run around the octagon. I must have done like 30 takes. And Meyerowitz was there, Bob, and he's like, he had to walk up there and go, "Hey man, this guy can't keep on picking this guy up and running around. He's a heavy man. He can't keep doing that." And I was like, young and dumb, and don't worry about it. I can do this all day. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, thank God, go Bob, go. Yeah, tell him not do this anymore. But yeah, so he was quite a heavy guy.
Did anyone ever try to set up a fight between you and Gary Goodridge? Because it seems that would have been a big money fight back then.
Yeah, for some reason, it never came to fruition. After he did the Iron Cross on Paul Herrera, that was, you would think would be the natural progression of that, but it just didn't happen. And so, whatever. I hear Gary's doing some hard times right now. I don't even know if he's still alive or not.
Yeah, no, he's still alive. I spoke to him not too long ago, but he's has those concussion issues.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I hope he's doing well. I hope
Don
everybody's
Fry, I
doing well.
interviewed recently too. His back, he's been wrestling still, and his back was broken again, but he seemed very well mentally when I talked.
Yeah. Don's a good guy too. I have a little bit of. See, when I was fighting back in the day, I wasn't just fighting like Don Fry. I was fighting the whole show. And they had me in my room, and then the whole show of cast of characters of fighters, they were all in conglomeration with each other. And I felt like Donald Trump. Everybody in the Democrats, everybody just wanted to take Donald Trump out. Everybody wanted to take Tank out, and they would all do whatever, like Don Fry fighting that one cat's name. I don't even know his name. He went out and did the job for him. He got him in an ankle lock real quick before I fought him. Can't remember his name. It's probably a reason why he's not worth remembering. But, and then like Oleg, he fought his partner before he fought me. It was all these guys, they were fighting each other. And like when he fought, Oleg fought Anthony Macias guy, he went in there and winked at him, like goes and does a job where I'm fighting a 380-pound man that was 6'5" after fighting a 400-pound man. The cards were stacked against me because I was the street fighter. I was the real fighter. It was funny when I had the fighter meeting at that first show. I go, "Can I wear these gloves here?" Because I cut the bar out of where you held on to. And Big John McCarthy goes, "Oh, if you want to wear them, go ahead and wear them." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can tell you guys never ever been in a real fight, because only thing that happens to you is beat up hands after that fact." And I needed to grapple, so I cut that bar out of there. I could grab, and that's what the modern day glove is today, because I was the first guy that wore those gloves into the ring. I mean, some guy had a hurt hand before me and wore a boxing glove on his jab hand, but that was it. But they all laughed at me, and now look who's all wearing them. It's because no one had any idea, or in my betting mind, had been in a real street fight more than once in their life at a high school gymnasium or something. But the world saw what was real. And as much as you hate me, as much as you want to hold on to your martial arts BS, you know the truth. I don't have to tell you the truth. You can just turn on the TV and watch it. You see 100% real, and you see 100% tough. And yes, I am full of myself right now.
Do you have any prediction for the upcoming Frank Mir voice versus Roy Nelson fight in Bellator?
Yeah, like who's Frank Mir? I know he twisted my foot off, and the guy's fighting. I don't know. You know, Frank Mir got completely lucky at the timing of my fight with him. My mother passed away like 3 or 4 days before that. I'll even say a week before that, but my head was in the clouds, 2 miles up in the clouds. I I called Dana up and said, "Hey man, I can't fight." And he goes, "You have to, please, for me." I go, "Man, I am a true warrior. I'm not going to make you beg. I'll show up, but don't be hoping for some miraculous thing." So then I went out there, sprawled, and stuck my foot in front of his face, and he twisted my ankle off. But you never know what's happening in people's lives or anything like that. And that whole rest of the 3-fight comeback deal was riddled with emotional issues that happened in my life that I just couldn't get my head into fighting. So Frank Mir, good luck to him. Don't really know the guy.
Roy Nelson, he has a build similar to what you had. He's got like a mullet. You may have
Oh
seen him.
well, he's my guy then.
Yeah. He's actually, I interviewed him once, and I think he said he was a fan of yours, from what I recall. So,
Oh, that's cool. Well, I'm a fan of his now that I know he has a mohawk. Or was it a mohawk or
no,
mullet?
he's got a
Yeah,
mullet,
mullet. Yeah, sure.
yeah, and he's got a build similar to what you had. And another question I had from fans after our last interview, you told me about this off camera, but maybe you want to say it on camera. Your book, a lot of people were saying, what happened with your book?
My book, it's coming out. Like the second part of the book is coming out real short, probably within the next month. It's 90% uh, edited. I have to add a few sentences, and I'm rewriting a chapter because the editor decided that he wanted to take some writing a license and changing the words around and filling in sentences. And I said, whoa, 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 put the brake on here. This is my book. These are my words. Your job is to put them into sentences, paragraphs, and chapters. Don't be starting adding content or things that don't make sense to you or to the whole layout of the book. So I had to rewrite this chapter, and there's some sentences I had to add, which should be done probably within a week. And then we got to do the final edit. Then book number 2 will come out. And that book is called, what is it called, Sally? Bar Fighter, Street Warrior, and Cage Fighter. Street Warrior will be out soon. I don't want to put a date on it, but within a month. And like I said, I didn't say that, but it should be out soon. And then the last book is it should be a simple edit, but the reason why it got sidetracked is because of my illness. And it's just over 1,000-page novel. I penned myself. I wrote the whole thing. So it's a long process. You know, when you write 3 books that are over 300 pages, all in one book, is an undertaking.
And you had some issues with the street fighting stuff too, right? Because obviously some of that stuff wasn't legal at the time.
Well, because it's a novel, and you know, I have artistic freedom, liberty to write what I want, and they might be based on events, but they could be completely exaggerated or fantasy of what I would have liked to have done, what I could have done. like when you see somebody, I could have punched that guy in the face. That doesn't mean I really punched the guy in the face. But when you're writing a novel and you're writing about something, you can say, hey, I punched him in the face, and that's not really the truth, because you could get in trouble for the truth. So that's why it's not the truth. It's all made up stuff.
So where can people buy that? The first part's already out if they
The
want to look it
first
up.
book, and it was on Amazon. I don't know. I think it might have got taken off. And but the second street fighter or street warrior, bar brawler, street warrior should be out in a month, and it continues down the story of Walter Fox and how he finds his way through life's travels. And then obviously the third book, Cage Fighter, is when he finds his way into a MMA show, and things take off for him.
And for the rude people that had the internet warrior comments, oh, Tank's poor now, blah, 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 blah. You're actually very successful, particularly for an MMA fighter, correct? I mean, all the medical costs you've had to pay for too.
Well, I could afford good insurance and a lot of luck, but that doesn't matter. I invested smartly, and I'm fortunate, and I live a very comfortable lifestyle, and I'm far from being hungry.
And you hold a degree in history or education, I think, too.
History.
History, yeah.
In the back of my mind, I was going to become an attorney, but fate intervened, and I became a professional fighter.
Well, it would have been great if you could represent yourself in those assault cases.
Well, that's what I was thinking right there. I'd break even on college loans, but it's been a long ride, and I'll probably be my number one client. But like I said, fate intervened, and I got to live my passion, which very few people get to do. And like I said, I'm not done. I'm going to be back there, maybe bouncing around in the ring or beating somebody up in a cage or doing something. But it's not because I have to. It's because I love to.
And people can follow your journey on Twitter or Instagram, which is at Tank Abbott, I believe. Is there anything you want to close off with? Anything you want to get off your chest here to the viewers before we?
Oh, no, I'm living good. I'm healthy, and I'm around. So I'm not hiding out in bars behind a cocktail glass anymore. I'm out living and having fun, and you'll be seeing me soon. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and good seeing you.